What's good, internet? Faded Gamer here, and I want to wish you all a happy New Year's. And today I got for you a review for the Spider-Man PlayStation 4 DLC Silver Lining. It's the third and final one in the City That Never Sleeps season pass that I got. And I have to say, like the other two previous, I have some things that I like, mostly like, but there are also things that I don't like, and criticisms really, and it's basically the same thing for the other two DLCs, which is it's short. It's not as long as I'd expected it to be, even though the story is a lot. I have to say it's the best story out of all three. I mean, all of these DLCs connect to each other. I just say this last part it ended off on a high note, which was nice. It was really good. I mean, it was the main mission again. Like I said, I wish there was a little bit more time to it, like more missions added, just for the fact to just not just to pad out, but just to like explore a little bit more. I mean, I guess that's what you have with the side quests as well. I mean, I've done a couple of the side quests in this one. I've done a couple in the other DLCs, but to be honest, I haven't finished any of the side quests for any of the DLCs. I'm gonna take my time. I may finish it, may not. I'm not too sure about that. But one thing I do notice from playing some of them is that the difficulty overall and gameplay-wise in all of the DLCs have gotten harder, progressively harder, and I think that's a big part, mainly because of there's probably some criticism of the main game being a little too easy, whatnot. Like you could put down people, and I'd have to agree with that, because one of the things I'd have to say while playing the main mission, the side quest in this latest DLC is it got hard to a point where I had to change up some of the gadgets and the actual suit powers that I would use, and which was fun, and I found it actually refreshing because it caused me to think about different ways of playing as Spider-Man with these suit powers, like not just using one. Because to be honest, I rarely changed my suit powers throughout the main game. It was kind of just like a one and done thing for me. It was pretty fun. I mean, because it was easy, the main story. But what I do like is it is difficult. It is definitely a lot harder. Like the enemies, I think they go down with the same amount of hits, but it's just the things that they could do now are a little bit different. Like they have moves. Like these jetpack guys have moves where if they hit you with their exhaust or whatever when they're flying, they can like shut down your gadgets for a little bit, which is also a good way to counter some of the stuff that Spider-Man has, which I like. Like they start to do things that actually actively counter Spider-Man. Like if you try to like just pull people from midair, there's the guys with the whips who would pull you down the ground, and definitely like not to mention the bigger guys, like the brutes, I would call them. They take a little bit more hits, I believe, and the guys with the miniguns I think are actually a little bit tougher than just the guys without miniguns, which is pretty good. And I mean, I find that pretty interesting. And the gameplay, they worked hard on the gameplay to being challenging, and I guess they try to make it easy because I guess they wanted it to be fun, but that's just my presumption on that matter. Some of the other things that I really liked about this DLC was the way that Silver Sable, she's like honestly my new video game waifu, to be completely honest. She's bad as hell. Her and Spider-Man have a very, very good dynamic. They have hella chemistry with each other, and watching how Spider-Man and Silver Sable react with each other in a couple of cutscenes really brings me back to when I used to watch the TV shows and the cartoon, like the original, like not the well, I've seen the original Spider-Man cartoon, but more the 90s Spider-Man cartoon. But that actually brings me back to one of the things I liked about the main story, was like watching how he interacts with other characters like Aunt May or like other superheroes or supervillains. It brings me back to that nostalgia feeling of like I was watching Spider-Man back when I was a kid, like the Spider-Man cartoon, or watching the movies or reading the comic books every once in a while. And I gotta say, like the banter they had with each other, it really brings me back to that. And that, for me, that just really boosts up not only the main story, but it's just the chemistry and how it fleshes out the characters that they established in the main story. Like I thought they'd actually bring in a whole bunch of different characters for the DLC, and they kind of did with Black Cat and Hammerhead, which is basically the only two they brought in. I mean, they could have brought more in, but with those characters they brought in, they focused more with the DLCs on fleshing out the characters that they already have in here, and which is what I really like. Is like they're setting up a world, and I will feel there's definitely going to be a sequel to it, and the sequel to this game is going to be really, really good. Whether or not it's on the PlayStation 4 or the next console, we'll have to see, because I have a feeling the next generation is right around the corner. But don't quote me on that. And like, just as like other parts of the story, I have to say is with Hammerhead. Like, I found him kind of an unappealing villain for the first 2 DLCs. I mean, he was alright. Like, I was like, okay, he was one of these C-list Spider-Man villains that Spider-Man would fight in a couple of comics, and never really translated well to or translated at all towards the movies or the TV shows, and that's cool. I like them bringing out obscure characters and kind of fleshing them out and making them their own characters in this universe, because I'm not too sure with Hammerhead does what it does in this game in the comics, because he kind of what I like is he replaced most of his body with robots. That he basically turned himself into a cyborg and took away his humanity. But when you watch him in the first DLC, you begin to realize, yeah, he was pretty brutal and lacked a lot of respect for or value for human life anyway. So to see him like change his body so like easily without not really thinking about it, like, it was kind of trippy, and like I actually grew to like Hammerhead as a villain a little bit more, and I may actually go try and look up some comics with him in it, just to see how his temperament is compared to the game, because in the game he's a guy I get, like, he's a little more, he's not super nuanced, but he's a little bit more depth than I thought an obscure Spider-Man villain could be. And that brings back to like all of the other villains, like how they have connections with Peter, and I have a sense in the way that what Hammerhead wanted was to bring back the old ways. Like, the reason, ironically, was because of Silver Sable and how she was able to take over the city in the main game. Like, he saw that and was inspired to be like, okay, if all we needed was, and in the intro to this DLC, he talks about how, oh, there's tech you need to get. All you need is the right tech, and you can take over the city. And when you play this game, when you play the DLCs, you kind of figure out that it's true. I mean, even though I don't know why the military would have gotten involved in like in the first DLC. But I mean, with that being said, I have to say overall, with all of the 3 DLCs, I'd still give this final one I'll give it an 8 out of 10, because of the story is a lot more enjoyable for me than the other 2. Not to say the other 2 were bad, it's just I enjoyed the banter between Silver Sable and Spider-Man even more than Black Cat and Spider-Man, to be frank. It was fun because it's like one's very cold and doesn't like to open up, and Spider-Man, yeah, I think he really thrives on that type of personality, to be honest. And with that being said, though, in conclusion, I just want to say, even though that this DLC pack, City Never Sleep, was slightly disappointing, all 3 of them I found myself slightly disappointed, only with the length. Pretty much with everything else was good. I'd have to say, on the whole, Spider-Man PlayStation 4 is still a good game to buy or to rent. It's definitely a game worth buying, brand new if you can, or used is fine. But it's definitely a game worth playing, worth investing time into, because especially if you're a Spider-Man fan. And I think I said that in my review for the main game. But yeah, this game really brings back memories, like nostalgic feelings of how I used to play Spider-Man with the old Spider-Man video games, to the comic books, the TV shows. But I'm gonna stop rambling here, because I'm still a fan, and I was a little less like optimistic before Silver Lining came out, but after I finished playing the game, I'm actually really enjoying and I'm more happy now than I was with the other 2. But with that being said, I'm the Faded Gamer. Here are a couple more screenshots for you. You guys also have a happy new year. RIP to the people we lost this past year. Speaking of Stanley, his memory will live forever with us. And with that being said, I'll see you guys in the next episode.